Good day everyone, my name is Jared. So today's topic for my webinar is actually about how to spot undervalued properties with clear exit strategy. What I'll be doing today is I'll be actually sharing with you a 3P framework, a very clear basic framework that helps investors and buyers to cut through the noise to understand how do I determine actually with a systematic approach to choose a product that actually can give you that capital appreciation that you are looking for, given that in today's market there's a lot of noise, a lot of information, probably flooded with a lot of opinions of what's good and what's not. What I hope to achieve also today is share with you why most buyers actually overpay and how you can avoid it. Also, there's a couple of mistakes that buyers normally make. They fail to understand why some properties profitable and what's not. A lot of people, they are kind of misled into properties that as long as you're near an MRT or you're near a good school, you're definitely profitable, only to realize that that's not really the real reason. This is also for investors who are looking for a formula which you should know before your next purchase. Last but not least, timing the market is quite hard. With a proper framework, learning how to actually understand the mechanics of what makes a profitable investment, spotting undervalued properties should not be that hard. So in terms of condo selection framework, I always like to bring to my buyers' attention of two separate frameworks. Okay, it's important to understand what the difference in terms of these two frameworks. One of them, I would like to relate it to a condo's DNA. These DNA are things that you can't change. Alright, these are specifically characteristics that's inherent to the condo or the unit that you are probably considering. This, however, does not directly correlate to whether a property is profitable or not. For property to be profitable, it's important to understand what we call the 3P framework. For profitable properties, it's about learning how to find or identify a safe entry. It's all about price, right? If the property is valued at a certain price, it's important to identify whether you are buying at below value, at value, or above value. Because what that means is it's able to help you to establish whether or not you have a clear exit plan. So a lot of buyers, I feel like they are kind of confused. They're muddled with a lot of opinions in the market, a lot of information online. They come to me and say, hey Jared, this property is near MRT, so therefore it should be a profitable investment. Or there are some extremists and come and tell me that, oh, this one is 99 years, so therefore lose money. You get to hear a lot of this kind of different opinions, which I then try to educate them very clear and systematic framework that there's a framework that you want to use when you select condos which are inherent to the property. So it's like that DNA that you can't change. But then for a property that has a certain DNA, depending on the timing where you enter into the market, it could be at value that you buy this, they could be above value, or they could be below value. So the 3P framework actually is more dynamic. It's really situational depending on the entry price that you go into. It depends on a lot of market forces. Whereas the static DNA framework is really fixed. You can't change whether the property is just near MRT or near school. In this webinar, it's a lot of focus on the 3P framework. I will be actually going in depth, in detail into three specific kind of case studies. So if today you are an investor, you probably have a budget about 1.5 to 2 mil, you are in luck. I have actually a case study that I prepared for you. Or if today you are a family of 4 looking for an upgrade from your HDB to say 4-bedder condo, you probably have a budget about 2 to 2.5 mil, and you're wondering about what are the kind of properties that I have that could have a good potential growth. You're also in luck. And finally, the third case study is actually targeting towards maybe a family who's considering multi-generation setup, but you probably think that the landed asset class is maybe 2 steps away from you, and you're probably exploring a 4-5-bedder condo as an intermediary step, but you're concerned with putting $3 million into a property that you want to make sure that has some growth so that you can enter into the landed asset class. This is also very suitable for you. Hey, without further ado, let me just show you deep dive into what we call the 3P framework. To really keep things simpler, why I call it 3P is really starting with price, position, and plan. Alright, so specifically on price. Whether or not a property is profitable or not in future depends on what is the entry price today. And what is your entry price today in relative to your surrounding price movements. It's important to understand your right entry price with reference to the disparity between a few things. I'll be talking about your new versus resale comparison, your region comparison within the district, both PSF and quantum. This is exceptionally important today because we live in a GFA harmonized calculation already. It's no longer just meaningful to compare just PSF alone. It's important to understand how quantum plays an important role as well, because at the end of the day, your buyer's affordability is not based on PSF, but The bank is only lending the buyers money based on how much they can borrow, and then that is really the quantum of the property affects them directly and more importantly than the PSL itself. And then the second P is about position. It's really understanding about the stack analysis. You'll be surprised that actually developers sometimes they price different stacks of the same kind of floor plan layout very differently. This is what we call pricing strategy from the developer, because they're incentivized to push units in a very strategic way without the consumers even knowing. And sometimes agents they are not fully transparent with how these are being priced, and then of course if you are not very analytical and you don't go down deep enough, you will find that certain stacks are more favorable and some certain stacks are not that favorable. So these factors like the unit facing layout, they does actually also translate to long-term value and in turn your price appreciation potential. Last but not least, also about the floor plan. So floor plan analysis is also very important because it's important to understand how your floor plan looks like with reference to the resale competitors. Always remember that today when you buy a unit, always put yourself in the shoes of your buyer 4 years later. Your unit is going to be in the resale market competing with your neighbors, and your floor plan must have a unique selling point with reference to your competitors. If you don't have that, or you are inferior in certain layouts, you'll find yourself 4 years later trying to compensate based on price, and that's not as what you don't want.